of 1999, almost 10,000 people gathered in The Hague, Netherlands to work for peace, like others before them had gathered a century before. This is a tiny slice of their story, expressed by people who were there.
Well, most people need to be reminded that The Hague is the site of the World Court. It was the site of the old League of Nations. It was the site of the first conference called by Nicholas II, the Czar of Russia, and the head of the state of the Netherlands 100 years ago in 1899 that laid the groundwork for the hope of the League of Nations and so on. We're here today to see if we can save the United Nations and transform it into an instrument of peace, and to make sure that all of the aspirations and dreams that they had 100 years ago now can begin to hit the pavement, can begin to turn into action, can begin to implement the kind of hope which they had there.
It's a gathering of people. It's the first time people can come to an international conference which isn't run by governments or the UN. It's where people come together and decide what they'd like to see happen in the world today, where they can take ownership for issues that are of importance to them in their communities, like peace and like justice.
To deal with a crisis in the Balkans, NATO had begun bombing Kosovo and Serbia shortly before the Hague Appeal for Peace Conference began. This highlighted the great dilemma which brought people there. In the new millennium fast approaching, would the world be able to solve its critical problems through legal and diplomatic methods, or would it have to resort to military force, as we have so often during the 20th century?
My name is Makaya Dominguez. I'm from Staten Island, New York, in America, and I'm here to facilitate youth workshops and get the youth involved, and for them to know that they have a say in peace and in international events, and also in like globalization, what it means, what they can do, and how much power they can have over the occurrences in the world, and in interconnection with where they live and the world, the rest of the world.
I'm Joshua Cooper from University of Hawaii at Manoa, and I came here because I believe it's important for many young people to get involved in creating a culture of peace in the new century. So I think probably I flew farthest than most people, but I think everyone needs to just make a small contribution in their own backyard, and that's really why I came here, to just take the first steps towards creating a culture of peace.
I'm Nicole Exner. I'm from Berlin, Germany, and I came to the Hague Appeal of Peace because living in Berlin really motivated me to focus on peace and war, because you heard of the Berlin Wall and everything. And so I came to the Hague Appeal of Peace just to get more information, what we can do to avoid war, and also how to integrate German foreign policy and Germany's economic power into peace development.
My name is Kai Jacobson. I'm from Norway in Canada. I think the vital message for people in North America is to know that we can do things if we work together, but that it's vitally important for all of us to work to do all that we can to promote active peace work and peaceful conflict transformation, both within our communities and by working together with people around the world.
My name's Elizabeth Golub. I'm from Washington, D.C., and I go to Washington International School, which is also in the district. I'm here with my Unitarian youth group, and I came because I want to learn what I can do personally in my community to promote both local peace and eventually world peace. It's a subject which I'm very interested in, and based on the resources I've come across so far through school and outside activities, I don't feel competent to work towards achieving it yet, so I'm trying to learn. That's the main reason I'm here.
I am Irene Kanodia from Kenya, and studying here, I'd like this message to go to all students. As we are nearing our millennium, we're seeing that technology is improving all over. And we see that so many people are creating weapons for war, and this is all to kill people. Well, what I would like to say is that the money that is being wasted on all those resources for war should be used on other social, economical, that they can benefit human beings from different places. So we should all love each other despite the differences that we all seem to have.
My name is Kelly Haig, and I'm a Peace Studies major at Northland College in Ashland, Wisconsin. And I'm here because I think that it's time that we start looking for new answers to old problems. We learn a lot about, war and the history of that, but we don't learn enough about nonviolence. And the examples of success are there, and it's just time that we start studying them.
My name is Saad Bannoura, and I come from Palestine, from the area of Bethlehem. I am a member and an employee in the YMCA rehabilitation program in Palestine, and I came here to represent the young Palestinians for an appeal for peace and to try to say to the world, it's enough, stop violence, stop war, stop bloodshed. We need to live in an area of peace all over the world.
There were many wheelchairs at the conference, victims of landmines, victims of wars, and victims of occupations like Syed. The appeal for peace was a physical presence as much as it was an intellectual goal.
My name is Deshna Plummer, and I'm from the United States. From California. I go to University of California, Santa Barbara. And I won a scholarship to come to the Hague Appeal for Peace Conference from the World Federalist Association based on a presentation I did in April. But I had already planned on coming, so the real reason I'm here is because this gives me an opportunity to not only meet people from every country you can imagine possible, but to learn a lot about the world issues that are occurring right now.
My name's Jeremy Woodrum, and I'm a student at American University in Washington, D.C., though I'm originally from the state of Colorado. I work for an organization called the Free Burma Coalition, which is a coalition of students, businessmen, and lawyers all over the world at over 100 universities who are working to promote freedom and democracy inside one of the most brutal dictatorships in the world, a country in Southeast Asia called Burma. The reason I came to this conference was because I wanted to have a chance to network and meet other people who would be interested in promoting freedom in that country, and also because a whole bunch of political refugees were able to escape from the underground in their country to come here to the Netherlands to help tell their story to other people around the world who can help them out.
My name is Zani, and I'm from Burma, a Southeast Asian country of 48 million people, and I founded the Free Burma Coalition, which is a coalition of students and citizens working in support of Burmese people's freedom struggle. Basically, democracy or freedom or human rights to the Burmese people means to have a decent human life where you don't have to worry about being dragged from your bed or being dragged from your dining room because you say something bad about your government. So we're fighting to have decency and human freedom inside the country, and we would really like you to help support our cause. Thank you.
I am Junsei Terasawa, Buddhist monk from Japan. This Hague Peace Appeal Conference is so rare and so unique gatherings of so many people who have such a rich experience of peacemaking, peace building. Some of them who are here now are the direct victims of the conflict. And I like to be here to share with so wonderful and rich experienced people how truly we can make the entering into the new millennium, new century, which is possible to be the world free of war and violence.
A remarkable aspect of this historic conference was intense diversity of almost every kind imaginable. There were queens and paupers, intellectuals, artists, and statesmen. Old and young, and every race and religion gathered to find some common ground from which to solve eternal problems.
I'm Kent Chifford from St. Paul, Minnesota, and I came here because I wanted to see 6,000 people from all over the world who are dedicated to peace. I wanted to recharge my soul. I wanted to bring my 16 students to this conference so that they could see there was hope for the future. And I think it will be life-shaping for some of them. This will carry them for many years.
Hi, I'm Christine from Denmark, and I'm here in Hague in the World Peace Conference because I think this is a matter that is about all of us. I think that we all need to be better to talk with each other no matter what ethnical background we have or what religion we have, because that's not really what matters. What matters is that we try to live together in this world, and we can. And this is not something that is only for politicians, it's for all of us in our daily life. So this is why it's important, and that's why I think you should be involved as well.
I'm basically a scientist working on the issues of the planet in terms of environment and long-term development. I think looking at the state of the world today, students not only in the United States but all over the world should know one thing, that today this earth is in dangers. The ravages are almost as widespread as human greed and human controls can allow. And the time has come that we have a rule of law in the world, which is according to the principles which can give the justice and the rights to all human beings in the next century.
Well, world federalism is the only structural resolution to this kind of a dilemma. It emphasizes the accent on the individual part, the individual initiative, the individual freedom, and the social cohesion, the unification that's provided by law. It substitutes the force of law for the law of force. It recognizes that unbridled force, with the technology augmentation we have now, is self-destructive. It's not only immoral, it's stupid.
Well, world federalism for a lot of people seems to be something that's outdated and, in terms of its mandate, but it is something that's very relevant to today's world. We're talking about world law. We're talking about institutions that can make things happen in a more civilized manner.
I'm Hannah Newcomb. I work full-time for the Peace Research Institute in my hometown, Dundas, Ontario, Canada. I've been doing that for 37 years. A desirable kind of world government would have to have certain characteristics. It must be universal, it must be democratic, it should have a federal structure, it should observe the principle of subsidiarity, where the lower levels of government are also activated, and it must be environmental sustainable, and it must close the rich-poor gap in the world and within countries as well.
That's an awful lot to ask of a world government.
Well, without it, we have an undesirable world government, which maybe we already have, globalization under corporate rule. And who wants that?
Peace was the main theme, but agendas spread in every related direction, preserving the environment, human rights, and 1,000 other issues of life and death significance.
One of the World Federalists' dedicated concerns is the environment. Let us save what we have and do not spoil the future.
The military and war are the greatest devastators of the environment. There's no greater polluter than military institutions. The military saps money that we could use to preserve and restore the environment. There are innumerable conflicts over scarce resources such as the Jordan River. Water is going to be the major source of environmental conflict. And all of these issues are global and planetary, and only a global level governance can solve them. Air pollution, water pollution, these know no borders. So it's only international institutions and treaty regimes that can help us to get control of these devastating problems.
Well, I think environmental issues are sort of a quintessential global issue, as it's clear that pollution does not respect national borders and the oceans and the atmosphere and the world's critical ecosystems, such as coral reefs and tropical forests. None of these conform to political maps. And of course, this poses a really major challenge for international cooperation. If the world community is to be able to confront the very many pressing environmental threats that it faces as we enter the new millennium, problems such as climate change, the loss of biological diversity, the overexploitation of the world's fisheries, soil erosion, water scarcity, and so on down the list, all of these problems are transnational by their very nature and therefore require much stronger and more effective mechanisms of international environmental governance if we're to successfully bring them under control.
Peace with justice and human rights. I think human rights is a really important document, and I guess my main focus is looking at the human rights of indigenous people. Because if you look around the world, indigenous peoples are unfortunately suffering the worst human rights violations in many places. So if we can ensure the human rights of indigenous peoples, then I think it protects and promotes the human rights of all peoples.
I think what they need to understand is that as humans, they're citizens not only of a community, a specific regional community or a nation, but of a world community. And in being so, they have certain responsibilities that they need to be actively involved in terms of sustaining human rights throughout the world. Because as a human, you have responsibilities to every human.
Once again, I'm Selma Hadji Khalilovic. I'm from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And there is only one message I have for everybody actually around. The life is so valuable, and it takes a second to lose it. Maybe you are rich enough to have a normal life and to be happy within that life, but there is millions and millions of people around you who are maybe not so happy as you are. So I think, don't be so selfish and don't look only into your own happiness, look also to the happiness of the other people living around you.
In fact, my time in Sarajevo made me change. It made me change in the way that I cannot imagine working in a hospital anymore. I really want to do some administrative work to have influence on the development of policy, on the development of economy, just to prevent conflict situations in that way.
I believe that an integrated approach by governments, NGOs, and individuals alike is the only way that we could solve a lot of the problems that are plaguing the world today. In my opinion, like the United Nations, for example, hasn't been as effective as it'd like to be in handling like the Kosovo crisis, and I think a lot of it's actually due to the fact that somehow states are not really willing to let the UN control a lot of areas that governments tend to kind of monopolize. I think the individual can really make a lot of difference. It's kind of like starting from the ground up approach. And the only way that we let the governments know that we do really care about peace is that the people have to be united and to speak as one voice.
Hi, I'm Daniel Voorhoeven, a student of international relations at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands. And one of the main concerns I have today is the fact that very few nations still pay attention to the United Nations. Right after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the UN was used by many nations in its foreign policy, and they seem to have forgotten about it in 1999. That's one of the main problems in international relations today.
Well, for me, the weapons in space is important for several reasons. One is that all along we have been fighting against all the weapons in the world, and yet today the world is spending about $750 billion on arms and armaments and wars and conflicts. And beyond that, we are going in space, we are nuclearizing space. The United States is putting weapons in space. They have a space Star Wars program to control the planet by 2020. I think this is a gross violation of any kind of a rule of law that is required in terms of the human society in the future. I feel we need to now challenge any form of weapons going in space, let alone anywhere else. And in the long run, our goal should be to disarm this planet. First, all the nuclear weapons, that is about 34,000 of them which are sitting here, should go. And secondly, we must get rid of every weapon on the planet, also in space, and we should use whatever resources we have for the good of the earth, for bringing the development in the world when such a large number of people, about 40% of them, are living in abject poverty and they're suffering. There is no reason for us to think about the enemies, because there are no more enemies in the world. Enemy is us, and we must get rid of our enemy by learning to live together as a one human society. And thank you.
I get quite a lot of optimism from two small facts. The first one is that humanity was able to overcome slavery and colonialism through the diligent, concerted, compassionate, deep, organized work by civil society, by ordinary people. It was not governments. They came afterwards. Same about colonialism. And the second point is that we human beings have been around for some 3-4 million years, and somehow we are still here. So there must be some kind of resilience in us, which by and large is on the good side, because if we were only bad, we would all have destroyed each other a long time ago. So I'm gambling on that, you see.
Sometimes people ask me if I'm an optimist or a pessimist about the outlook for world peace. And I can't answer that, because we are in a crisis, and that could lead either to breakdown or breakthrough. And we don't know yet which it's going to be. But as somebody said, there is something between optimism and pessimism, and it's called courage. In other words, we have to go on and work for world peace, or we have no chance whatever.
Students in America need to know, students especially at the university level, need to know that we are in a global world right now. The borders that divide us are all false realities. And as future world leaders and future world participants, we need to know that what will unite us as a world is common understanding and tolerance and activism for peace. I think it can happen. I really do. But it's going to take people doing things. It's going to take people acting out. It's going to take people resisting.
Dreams are what started everything. And everything starts with a vision. And it's from expressing that vision and getting people to see your vision and to go along with it that any kind of movement starts.
Hope is important, and you have to look at it as though, not as what you're doing now, but what you can do, what you have the capability to do, and that young people have power. And most people don't realize that. So what I think the most important thing is the realization of the power that youth have and the influence that you have and will always have.
I'm Cesar Villanueva. I'm a member of Pax Christi, Philippines. And I think what I'd like to say is the young people of the world need to come together and try to rescue the future by trying to establish a culture of peace, by trying to revision the future so that they can be able to create something new and recolonize the future through peace and not war.
I think that is something we can do in our everyday life, like buying free trade coffee or giving some money to Red Cross. These small things, they do help actually. So get on with it.
The most important thing to tell young people is that they can make a difference. I've seen that in everything that I've done, and I see that with all the young people who are here today, that every action of theirs is going to make a difference somewhere in the world, and that their participation is the most important thing that we have in terms of a future, and it's their future, it's our future.
If from time to time you despair, Remember these 3 kids from Colombia. Together with their friends, they mobilized 5 million Colombians who took to the streets calling for an end to the violence and the complex civil wars which are robbing their future. UNICEF nominated them for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Mayeli's message to the children, to the youth of the U.S. is that children should work for their country. They are beings who can think and who can do something for their country.
Yo soy Farlis Calle, vengo de Apartado, Colombia, y quiero decirles que la escuela es un lugar donde tenemos que vivir pacíficamente, en donde no tenemos que matarnos y que definitivamente el ser diferentes no significa que tengamos que agredirnos los unos a los otros.
The message of Farlis is that schools are an area where we have to learn how to live peacefully. We should not kill ourselves. We should learn to respect our differences and to work together towards a peaceful situation in schools.
Mi nombre es Dilia Lozano, soy de Bogotá, Colombia, y el mensaje que le quiero dar a la juventud de Estados Unidos es que aprendan a valorar a las personas como son, con sus valores, con sus sentimientos y no por su color.
Dilia's message is that we have to learn to value people as they are. We have to value them for their feelings, for who they are, not for their color, for their religion, or for any other characteristic.
With young people like these, there is always hope for the future.